Africa is the second largest continent, and it is full of fascinating discoveries that are rewriting history and expanding our knowledge. Join us as we show you what scientists have discovered in Africa that shocked the whole world. Number 15. Oldest ever remains. In 1961, miners in Morocco uncovered one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the century: 300,000-year-old human remains that represent the oldest known fossils of our species, Homo sapiens. For decades, researchers were puzzled by these bones found at a site called Jebel Irhoud. Controversy raged over their interpretation and dating. However, recent analysis finally confirmed they belong to an early evolutionary phase of modern humans. The fossils include skull bones and several jaw bones from at least 5 individuals who perished there. Sophisticated dating methods determined the sediments encasing them are approximately 300,000 years old. This shatters the previous record for the earliest known Homo sapiens by over 100,000 years. The Irhoud 1 mandible and the child's jaw are almost identical to our anatomy today, but the brain case reflects archaic properties expected in primitive human variants. This mix of modern and ancient traits paints a fascinating picture of our genus in a key transitional phase, on the cusp leading toward our contemporary form. Long before recorded history, early Homo sapiens were already well established in North Africa. They made stone tools, used fire, and hunted large game like zebras, wildebeests, and hartebeests. Excavations at Jebel Irhoud uncovered these telltale signs of material culture buried alongside their fossilized bones. Sharpened flint shards still fit comfortably in the hand, suited for cutting tasks. Several show burn marks, suggesting intentionally controlled use of fire. After usage, the sooted blades were simply discarded on the ground where water seeped minerals into the discarded tools for millions of years until resurfacing as relics of this forgotten ancestor. Number 14. Python Worship Site. In the undulating bushveld of modern Botswana, a community of Stone Age hunter-gatherers established a sacred site about 70,000 years ago, focused reverently around a snake-shaped rock formation. There, within a natural rock shelter, archaeologists found ancient spearheads and stone tools buried as ritual offerings before the carved serpent idol. Surprisingly, this Ophidian worship significantly predates the earliest known religious practices in Europe by over 30,000 years. The site's remote location protected its artifacts from disturbances over the millennia. Scientists extensively dated the activities found there to construct a detailed timeline. The ancient worshippers first carved the snake-like image from local bedrock and established a shrine space before its sinuous coils. Around the rock serpent sculpture lay buried a cache of expertly knapped, small leaf-shaped stone points and hand axes. Radioisotope dating of the spearhead sediment matrix indicates intermittent visits occurred over more than 20,000 years. Further excavations uncovered no human remains, confirming the site's use was limited to spiritual devotions centered on the snake sculpture. This discovery proves prehistoric hunter-gatherer culture in Africa exhibited abstract artistic creativity, coupled with serpent veneration millennia earlier than Bronze Age religions did elsewhere globally. Number 13. Mysterious Mummy of KV-55 Tomb. In Egypt's Valley of the Kings, a baffling burial dating to the turbulent Amarna period around 1350 BCE contains a mummy whose identity has puzzled generations of researchers. Found in 1907 at the entrance of tomb KV-55, the remains are too fragmented to definitively determine whom they belong to. But speculation abounds, fueled by the tomb's peculiar assortment of mismatching artifacts. Despite intense scrutiny through modern forensic methods, the mysterious ancient mummy from KV-55 still keeps its secrets. The tomb itself shows signs of ancient looting, evidenced by the dismembered and disfigured mummy discarded near its entryway. Robbers ripped off the head, hands, and feet post-interment seeking jewelry. Further mutilations to the corpse's midsection exposed its embalmed internal organs. Scraps of the burial wrappings and coffin were all that remained enclosing the battered body. Remarkably, other contents of the tomb survived untouched. These include 4 ornate wooden shrines, magnificent furniture, alabaster vessels and seals, and exquisite inlaid gold ornaments featuring protective falcon motifs. Why such valuable grave goods went unplundered remains perplexing. Initial research on the remains in 1912 assumed they belonged to Queen T, the matriarch of Dynasty 18's latter kings. However, subsequent studies on the femur bones and skull fragments determined the deceased was male. Subsequent speculations have entertained a dozen potential candidates, including the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten and his obscure successor Smenkhkare. Without written records, DNA sampling offers the only potential resolution. For now, the corpse's identity continues to elude expertise. The notion of a hidden royal mummy and treasures still inspires avid curiosity. Number 12. The marvelous baobab tree. Dotting the arid African savannas grows one of the most awe-inspiring trees inhabiting our planet, the magnificent baobab. This colossal plant is an icon of the landscape, with its tremendously thick trunk extending over 80 feet. Resembling an enormous tree uprooted and replanted upside down, the baobab carries itself with gravitas befitting an elder woodland guardian. Some individual baobab trees still thriving today have borne witness to human civilization's rise and fall over 2,000 years. The baobab's expansive trunk serves as a massive moisture tank, comprising over half the water content. This enables the tree to endure harsh drought conditions year after year that would yield fewer plants. Even the largest baobabs can regrow their forest of branches after standing utterly leafless for decades when the rains finally return. The spongy wood soaks up every drop of moisture during downpours, stockpiling a supply to sustain it through subsequent dry spells. Shedding its leaves is the baobab's evolutionary adaptation to preserve itself through periods of extreme aridity. But the baobab is far more than just a towering sap tank on the savanna. Its edible leaves offer a staple vegetable crop for African villagers. The tart vitamin-rich fruits can be eaten fresh or pulped into refreshing drinks. Fibrous bark stripped from aged trunk wood provides sturdy fiber for weaving cloth, rope, and baskets. And the seeds yield cooking oils as well as exotic skincare products. For all these gifts enriching daily village life, the venerable baobab tree merits honor as Africa's generous old tree of life. Number 11. Ancient Nubian stone tablets. In the arid desert, northeast of Khartoum, stand crumbling remains of mighty pyramids and temples built over 3,000 years ago by the Nubian kingdom of Kush, a centralized power controlling trade along the Nile River in ancient times. This civilization left behind an extensive necropolis around their capital Meroe, containing over 80 burial pyramids, 100 tombs, temples, monuments, and palaces, and an intriguing mystery carved into weathered stone tablets scattered amongst the ruins. These engraved stelae bear commemorative inscriptions in Meroitic, the undecoded written language of Kush, rendered in an obscure alphabet still frustrating researchers today. Meroitic writing represents the oldest recorded sub-Saharan language, but ever since its disappearance, the meanings locked inside these Nubian tablets have proven stubbornly impenetrable to decoding. Linguists remain unable to fully translate most lines of Meroitic text beyond names and titles associated with gods, kings, and nobles. This leaves much crucial vocabulary around law, science, commerce, and daily life still opaque to interpretation. But the tantalizing possibility of unearthing the collective wisdom and histories from this influential but forgotten African civilization keeps researchers plugging away to crack the script. What cultural insights and technological knowledge did ancient Nubians record for posterity only to lose their linguistic keys generations later? How might access this rarely documented pre-colonial African language shift historical perspectives? For now, the mysterious stone tablets from Meroe serve as our only meaningful window into Kushite culture. If only we could read them. But unlocking their encrypted messages promises to redeem vital missing details of Africa's glorious past. How an empire thrived where now only ghosts and wind-blown sand remain. We must take great care to preserve what evidence survives before all traces of Meroe's achievements crumble to dust in the desert winds. Number 10. Prehistoric cave paintings. Across Africa's remote Sahara Desert, Sheltered within hidden cave networks far from today's beaten tracks, lie stunning galleries of ancient artwork dating back over 10,000 years when the region was comparatively lush and verdant. These mystic cave temples harbor paintings left by prehistoric ritual specialists, depicting lively hunting scenes amidst wild game no longer found in the now parched landscapes. But interspersed with mundane activities are more unsettling tableaus of fantastical human-animal hybrids and tiny clawed humanoids that continue to baffle researchers. What beliefs inspired our African ancestors to create such bewildering imagery on stone underground? The cave art illustrates human hunters wielding spears and nets, tracking and capturing rich wildlife from extinct megafauna to antelopes still common today. Interspersed curiously amongst African mammals are mythic chimeric creatures with distorted forms and missing parts. Some figures combine human and animal elements like the Egyptian Sphinx. Others resemble no creature ever confirmed. What outdoor world were these cave artists portraying? Or did the walls expose an inner spirit realm instead? Equally puzzling are the odd handprint stamps accompanying many paintings, alternating tiny clawed ones between normal human-sized hands with missing fingers. If these extremes represent children versus hunters, why would kids be granted such sacred decorative duties? Unless perhaps diminutive forest spirits served important functions for attendant shamans granting access to magical realms. In that case, the surreal hybrid beasts adorning their cave sanctum may represent spirit familiars bound to the mystic will. Sadly, the true meanings behind these ornate prehistoric cave shrines lie buried in lost traditions of indigenous African shamans from extinct societies. But the disquieting art they left for us in the dark still resonates with magical power for modern minds to muse and wonder at. Number 9. Untouched rainforest hidden atop mountain. Scientists have just found an untouched rainforest on top of a mountain in Africa. In the remote corner of northern Mozambique, a pristine jungle ecosystem has somehow persisted through the centuries, secluded from humanity behind towering cliff walls. This lost world remained unnoticed by science until a recent astonishing discovery. In 2013, conservation scientist Dr. Julian Bayliss was scanning satellite images of Mozambique when his eye caught on a small verdant patch crowning a highland called Mount Lico. Could this be an undisturbed forest outlier, he wondered, a sky island stranded by eroding terrain? After organizing an expedition to confirm, Bayliss and his team found themselves rappelling 125 vertical meters up sheer rock faces, using mountaineering gear just to reach the isolated jungle atop the mountain. Once at the summit, they stepped out into 1,000 acres of pristine montane forest, a rich, vibrant microcosm completely cloistered from the modern world. The untouched jungle atop Mount Lico appears suspended in time, looking much the same as when the first human ancestors walked the African savannas millions of years ago. The trees soaring above the canopy verge 100 feet tall, draped in hanging vines and orchids. Rainforest birds call amidst the dense undergrowth, including African vultures only found in healthy interior forests. The team even discovered a new species of butterfly on the plateau. But the greatest revelation emerging from Mount Lico's isolated rainforest is what, or rather who, seems absent. Throughout their biological surveys, the explorers found no signs of human visitation. Not a single pioneer axe mark scratches the trees. Analyses confirmed that much of the plateau's rich organic soil likely accumulated undisturbed since the forest first colonized the mountain. Mount Lico's sheer cliffs encircling the area prevented access, protecting the forest sanctuary from human contact over countless generations. Locals at the mountain base even shared whispered legends of supernatural spirits, warding the forest heights from unwanted visitors. For conservationists, Mount Lico's pristine rainforest offers a unique time capsule providing vital clues to Africa's ancient environments before mankind's global footprint. But can this lost Eden endure untouched in today's crowded world for much longer? As Mozambique's roads and farms keep pressing farther into once wild savannas, the pressures on this forest outlier keep mounting. Even if left alone, climate shifts could destabilize its delicate ecology. Now that Mount Lico's secret is out, Scientists race to learn its many lessons before this accidental wildlife refuge winks out for good. Number 8. Africa slowly splitting into two continents. A colossal crack is splitting Africa apart. From Ethiopia down through Kenya and Tanzania, the Earth's crust is strained to breaking point. Currently stretching about an inch wider per year, this giant rift valley will, over the next tens of millions of years, tear East Africa away from the rest of the continent, leaving an ocean between. This slow but relentless process will utterly reshape Africa's geography. This widening fracture zone is called the East African Rift System, simply EARS, part of Africa's dangerous dance above one of Earth's most restless hotspots, where vast plumes of smoldering mantle rock well up to melt the crust. The EARS forms the divergent boundary between several tectonic plates, grinding past each other at this unstable junction. As they pull slowly apart, they stretch the landscape into an ever-deepening valley. Within this developing rift, the strain builds until the land ruptures in a dramatic fashion, manifesting as violent earthquakes and volcanoes bursting suddenly from below. Indeed, all along the Great Rift Valley fracture, volcanic peaks cast smoke plumes into African skies, while the terrain sinks unevenly below. In northern Ethiopia, near the rift's origin, the Erta Ale lava lake has boiled non-stop for over a century, showing no signs of stopping. Farther south along the Kenya Rift, Mount Suswa's caldera contains perhaps the world's largest lava tunnel system, only partially mapped so far at over 12 miles long. Tectonic forces keep dragging the rift wider, while these volcanoes help further split Africa along its geologic wound. In the Afar Triangle at the northern rift's junction, the continent is actively cracking into separate plates visible at the surface. Here, rival nations of Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Eritrea all meet at a triple point amidst simmering rift volcanoes. The straining crust has formed sharp ridges, deep gorges, and strange salt flats as it pulls slowly apart. Geologists believe that eventually, in about 10 million years, the intense pressures beneath Afar will triumph and an ocean will flood into the rift zone as Africa finally splits. When it does, our planet will have grown a new sea to remind all future generations of Africa's breakup written in stone. For now, we have a narrow window to witness our changing planet in action as East Africa continues inching away from its mother continent. Number 7. Goliath frogs found in Africa. The largest frog species on Earth makes its home in the dense rainforests of coastal West Africa. Reaching over a foot long and weighing more than 7 pounds, these enormous amphibians appropriately bear the name Goliath frogs. They demonstrate that cold-blooded creatures can match warm-blooded animals in size under suitable environmental conditions, and their huge tadpoles only add to their impressively bulky life history. Goliath frogs dwell in small, isolated populations across Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. Here, the dark, swampy forests near rivers and wetlands offer ideal habitat for these giants. Rarely seen, they spend most days concealed in leaf litter. But Goliath frogs emerge briefly at night to find food along waterways using their excellent swimming ability afforded by partially webbed feet. Their capacious mouths can swallow birds, snakes, crustaceans, small mammals, and even other frogs. Reproductive habits separate Goliath frogs further from typical frogs. Where most species lay batches of eggs in jelly-like masses, Goliath frogs retain eggs internally and give birth to froglets directly. Their uniquely large spawn thus bypasses the vulnerable tadpole stage via this incredible reproductive adaptation. Nevertheless, some tadpoles do get produced measuring around 5 inches long, more akin to salamanders than frogs at that size. The long-term outlook remains uncertain for these practically prehistoric relics. Continued habitat loss threatens Goliath frogs, like most African rainforest wildlife, and their highly specific habitat needs preclude adapting to disruptions. But steady conservation efforts aimed at preserving Cameroon's rainforests will hopefully stave off declines for the frogs. Protecting Goliath frogs ensures future generations can experience one of Earth's most astonishing creatures. Number 6. HomonN. In 2013, while exploring the Rising Star Cave system north of Johannesburg, a couple of recreational cavers made a startling discovery: a narrow crevice passage leading to an unmapped underground room littered with bones. These small-brained humanoid fossils turned out to represent a previously unknown hominin species, our newest but most perplexing ancient ancestor dubbed Homo naledi. Homo naledi displays an unusual mix of expected and surprising traits across 15 individuals discovered so far, spanning all ages and genders. Their brains measured a mere 500 to 610 cubic centimeters in volume, only marginally larger than chimpanzees. This suggests limited analytical abilities. However, Naledi hands evolved specialized wrists ideal for tool usage, indicating they likely crafted stone implements. Their shoulder joints also allowed versatile overhead arm positioning like modern humans. Confoundingly, though, Homo naledi retained some more primitive great ape features too. Their fingers curved slightly for climbing trees rather than strictly upright walking. Their small teeth and wide jaws appear adapted for varied diets requiring little oral processing. What combination of environmental factors across southern Africa was selected for this peculiar mosaic of human and primate passports is not yet clear. Equally puzzling is how so many Homo naledi individuals came to rest together in Rising Star's difficult-to-access underground Dinaledi chamber. There is no evidence the cavers themselves placed the bones there in ancient or modern times. Lacking other explanations, scientists wonder if perhaps Naledi tribes used caves ritually, or deposited their dead deep inside for spiritual reasons. The secrets these extinct hominins take with them leave researchers struggling to cleanly place Naledi along the convoluted path of human evolution. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. Scientists have just found an untouched rainforest on top of a mountain in Africa. Although the Amazon retains its fame as the world's largest rainforest, researchers recently uncovered a pristine forest blanketing a remote African mountain peak. Nestled in Mozambique, this ancient woodland shows no signs of previous human contact, without even an axe mark marring its trees. Africa, as the cradle of humanity, has witnessed countless cultures rise and fall across its vast landscapes over the millennia. Yet somehow, this forest has escaped notice and exploitation, retaining its primal splendor through the ages. Local legends tell of bizarre animals, never before studied by science, that dwell deep within the untouched forest. Giant snakes, mythical beasts that fly through the ancient trees, and tribes lost to time itself. This discovery leaves one wondering what other natural or cultural revelations remain hidden across Africa's many remote and secluded corners. Share your thoughts in the comments. Number 5. Mysterious elephant deaths in Botswana. In 2020, a disturbing mass mortality event struck Botswana's famed Okavango Delta region. Nearly 400 African elephants turned up dead under unknown circumstances. With poaching ruled out early, scientists scrambled to uncover the cause behind one of the worst disasters for Earth's largest land mammals. After months of analysis on carcasses and environmental samples, cyanobacteria toxicity emerged as the culprit. The first carcasses noticed back in May appeared healthy apart from sudden collapse. Tusks were left intact, with no signs of human interference. The bodies dotted the sprawling delta channels, spanning over 10,000 square miles of lush wetland populated by over 15,000 elephants. With Botswana harboring a third of Africa's remaining savanna elephants, authorities were anxious to halt the die-off and avert a potential epidemic. Considering the elephant carcasses centered around seasonal water holes, scientists deduced a toxification event. Biopsies detected cyanobacterial neurotoxins in elephant liver tissue and traces in some pools. These blue-green algae blooms occur in the delta's floodplains during hot periods. Ingesting a lethal dose through drinking can swiftly paralyze and drown even massive 6-ton elephants. Fortunately, chemical treatment of watering holes curbed the outbreak before over 500 fatalities. Understanding all factors influencing this ecology will help protect these keystone species. While the pandemics of COVID-19 and Ebola rightly disturb us, such outbreaks in wildlife commonly go overlooked when less conspicuous microbes like bacteria and algae drive them. Unraveling the delicate balance of remote habitats like the Okavango wetlands ensures the survival of Botswana's elephants as well as the entire spectrum of life relying on their keystone presence. Number 4. Ancient riches discovered at North Pillar Burial Site. In northwest Kenya, a stone burial mound called North Pillar Site held an astonishing discovery in its 7,500 square foot expanse. A treasure trove of exquisite ornaments and artifacts dating over 5,000 years old. This rich African site was built by an early cattle herding culture predating the ancient Egyptians. Researchers uncovered nearly 600 interred bodies, all lavishly adorned with jewelry crafted from exotic materials. The rare window into early African grandeur reveals intricate artistry predating most civilizations. Excavations of the North Pillar site since 2006 gradually unearthed evidence of a sizable monument for its era. The mound contained 2 main tomb structures, housing hundreds of human remains buried in separate log coffins, all oriented uniformly east-west. But more astonishing were the abundant regalia burying them. Exquisite beadworks of carnelian and turquoise, decorative cowrie shells, ivory rings, and delicately worked ostrich eggshells adorned the dead. Tusk headdresses incorporated symbolic iconography with advanced metalworking. The rich memorial offerings indicate a society with pronounced social stratification, able to acquire prized trade items from extensive networks across Africa and the Middle East. The communal tombs imply these early Holocene herders expressed collective identities through monumental architecture. Cattle bone concentrations show they kept large herds, yet also relied seasonally on wild grains and fish. In many ways, the North Pillar people presaged the progressive trajectory seen in Egypt's climb toward complex state-level society thousands of years later. Number 3. Mysterious Bokoni ruins in South Africa. Tucked amid the rolling emerald hills of southeastern Zimbabwe lie the remnants of a once thriving but still mysterious ancient African civilization known as the Bokoni. Dating back over 8,000 years, the elaborate yet puzzling stone structures and settlements attributed to these early African peoples continue to intrigue and confound archaeologists to this day. The unusual ruins scattered throughout modern farmlands in the region suggest the Bokoni people possessed advanced architectural and agricultural skills that enabled them to erect intricate stone monument complexes as well as implement innovative land management techniques that would have allowed sustainable farming practices to take root in the semi-arid African grasslands. Fields lined with symmetrical stone walls enclosing settlements indicate a complex, well-organized agrarian society tending cattle alongside staple cereal grain crops. Sophisticated subsurface irrigation canals extending outwards from hillside springs hint that the Bokoni also devised successful water storage and transport solutions tailored for the hot, drought-prone climate. Small yet elaborate multi-room structures built in proximity to these agricultural plots additionally suggest communal living and close community integration was also an essential pillar of Bokoni civilization. But where exactly the Bokoni originated from and what happened to them remains two of the most intensely debated mysteries surrounding this enigmatic African culture. Some archaeologists theorize they were migrants from ancient Sumeria, based on striking similarities found woven throughout remnants of Baconian and Middle Eastern art, architectural, and agricultural practices of the period. Linguistic traces buried in African folklore legends also tentatively support the link to the Fertile Crescent. Number 2. Skystone. Back in 1990, an amateur Italian mineralogist named Angelo Pittoni stumbled upon one of Africa's most bewildering and anomalous gemstone specimens, yet recorded while conducting geological surveys around remote mining villages of Sierra Leone. Its vivid neon-like sky blue color first caught his eye from a bucket filled with assorted native crystals and mineral samples dug up from a nearby hillside that local miners had gathered to sift through. Dubbed the Skystone once officially catalogued, lab spectrographic analysis soon determined this unusually lustrous fist-sized stone's bizarre composition consisted of over 77% pure oxygen embedded within a contiguous crystal matrix. An impossible combination for any terrestrial mineral ever documented. Further inquiry soon revealed that the mystery oxygen crystal originally came from a massive subterranean geode chamber that villagers in the region had long known about, which periodically filled with exotic cavern crystals after intense meteor showers bombarded the land above, some no doubt carrying the interstellar mineral compounds down from outer space inside their rocky cores as they fragmented violently in the upper atmosphere before impacting the surface at cosmic velocities. Isotopic ratios mismatching any Earth-based elements conclusively certified the Skystone's extraterrestrial origins, likely having formed billions of miles away within the energetic shockwaves and particle collisions flowing through nebula-stellar nursery regions just after the Big Bang before eventually getting gravitationally captured by swirling gas clouds that later condensed into our nascent solar system. Upon final assembly into asteroids and protoplanetary objects, embedded grains and chunks of the solidified oxygen mass drifted intact until smashed vehemently into the African subcontinent eons later by the cataclysmic impact of an enormous asteroid that left behind the 19-mile-wide Redefort Dome crater remaining today as Earth's largest visible impact scar. However, unlike typical meteorites, the bewildering Skystone's high oxygen composition makes it utterly unique among all cataloged extraterrestrial minerals recovered to date. No analogous terrestrial processes remotely account for such an improbable crystalline arrangement of the highly reactive gas. In many ways, the Skystone almost appears intelligently engineered or fabricated through advanced off-world means, still bewildering to modern science. Yet inexplicably, its apparent burial age, stemming from a geological stratum nearly 12,000 years old, seems to preclude any known advanced terrestrial civilization existing back far enough capable of synthesizing such a perplexing oxysilicate specimen. Number 1. Skeleton Coast Shipwrecks. Along the desolate Atlantic coast of Namibia lies one of the most forbidding shores on Earth. Mariners dubbed this rocky and fog-bound passage the Skeleton Coast for the whale and seal bones that litter its beaches alongside strange shipwrecks stranded far from any sea lanes. The combination of dense offshore fog banks, pounding surf, and offshore rock shoals makes this coastline perilous for vessels to approach. For that reason, few have braved these forbidden waters, but many daring captains drawn too close have left their bones on Namibia's ship graveyard shores. Countless vessels came to grief along this notorious African coast down the centuries. Explorer Sebastian de Sequeira recorded its menacing appearance after encountering Skeleton Coast storms in 1990. But the dangers disclosed themselves much earlier to ships plying southern seas since the 15th century. By the 20th century, improved navigational charts began allowing safer passage for most ships, leaving the forlorn wrecks of less fortunate voyages corroding in the sand undisturbed. The most visible wreck marking the Skeleton Coast today lies just south of the Kunene River, separating Namibia from Angola. There, the mangled frame of the Edward Bolen steamer rests half-submerged offshore, its boilers and shattered hull plating firmly lodged in sand by decades of ocean surge. The 440-foot iron ship ran aground in 1909 while bound for South Africa with railway parts, and now sits frozen in time, endlessly disintegrating grain by grain. Farther north near the Angolan border, the earlier iron whaling brig Otavi tells a similar tale, lying mostly buried on shore after foundering on New Year's Eve 1945. Its rusting horizontal ribs and intact hull timbers resemble the fossilized skeleton of a vanished ocean giant. The Otavi wreck site draws jackals, brown hyenas, and other scavengers seeking sustenance left behind by the breached ship. Their tracks frequently crisscross the jumble of metal debris on Namibia's ship Boneyard coast, which swallowed another victim. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.